So NARA is established. The purpose of NARA is to take all the projects that we have had in development, or some of them in File 13, and all the new projects, and coordinate their implementation. It will work directly with the projects that the government is leading. But that is not going to be enough. We need to crowd in the private sector, and that is why we have FAST working in complement with NARA. And a typical way in which this will work, Madam Speaker, when I go to show you all the projects that NARA will likely do, you will see that there are great opportunities for the private sector to come in. Every highway that we put in opens up lands for housing, low-income housing, for tourism, for agriculture, for manufacturing. Madam Speaker, NARA's first and most consequential mandate will be to prepare a comprehensive project and economic plan to deliver within the next 4 years. And when we say deliver, we mean complete within the next 4 years. Today, I lay out a transformative vision for Jamaica by highlighting several national projects across the length and breadth of the country. Many of these projects are not new. They have appeared in development plans, consultancy report, policy discussions for years, in some cases for decades. This vision was never the problem. What was missing was the mechanism to convert them from aspirations into reality. The financing, the institutional architecture, and the enabling environment. We now have all of these. Some of these projects will be delivered through NARA, others will be executed through existing institutions and public-private partnerships operating alongside and in concert with NARA. What unites them all is a single coherent national vision. A Jamaica rebuilt stronger, planned smarter, connected more efficiently, and distributed more equitably. Where every region of this island is a functioning engine of growth, and where the resurgence we are claiming is visible, tangible, and felt in the daily lives of every Jamaican. I will highlight a few of these projects starting in the southwest. Black River. Madam Speaker, I want to start in Black River, because Black River tells a story that is larger than one town. It is the story of the existential vulnerability of low-lying coastal communities to the intensifying force of climate change. Black River is one of Jamaica's oldest and most storied towns. Founded in the 18th century, it was among the first places on this island to receive electricity, piped water, and the motor car, a proud maritime hub, the commercial heart of St. Elizabeth, gateway for the logwood and rum and pimento trade that shaped our economic history. The Georgian wooden houses along the waterfront, the masonry, mercantile buildings, the civic structures by the sea, all spoke to a town of character, history, and dignity. But Black River grew as many Caribbean coastal towns grew, parallel to the shoreline. Its hospital, its courthouse, its market, its homes, all concentrated along the coast, all exposed. For generations, that vulnerability was managed, tolerated, absorbed, but Hurricane Melissa ended that. Storm surges of 8 to 14 feet tore along the Crane Road corridor. The historic waterfront was devastated, civic buildings destroyed, critical infrastructure severely compromised. Madam Speaker, we will not rebuild Black River as it was. We will rebuild it as it should be. And in so doing, create something this town has never possessed in its 300 years of history: a real planned, consolidated urban core. The Urban Development Corporation, working with our development partners, is advancing a climate-resilient redevelopment plan that separates what belongs inland from what belongs on the coast. The heart of the plan is the new urban center, to be developed inland, safely above storm surge and projected sea level rise. And you can see a representation of where that urban center is going to be and what it, well, that's the waterfront, but what it could look like. So this is where Black River's essential public functions, its hospital, courthouses, municipal offices, police station, tax office, schools, market, and transport hub will be consolidated into a planned, workable, flood-safe precinct for the first time. It will have a proper town square, a civic park. The buildings will be designed to withstand Category 5 wind loads. Built on elevated platforms above projected sea level rise scenarios with utility corridors, drainage infrastructure, and emergency redundancy. The historic waterfront will be protected by a layer of coastal defense systems, submerged offshore breakwaters to dissipate wave energy before it reaches shore, a concrete seawall integrated with a continuous public boardwalk, and engineered revetments along the most vulnerable stretches of coastline. The waterfront will become what it always had the potential to be, a vibrant public amenity, an entertainment and tourism corridor, a place where boutique hotels and restaurants and cultural experiences make this stretch of Jamaica South Coast a genuine destination. So, the same questions that Melissa forced on Black River must now be confronted everywhere, and the answers must be guided by the same logic, applied consistently, deliberately, and at national scale. That logic can be distilled into 4 foundational principles that will guide how we plan, build, and invest going forward. The first principle is strategic spatial planning and risk-informed development. What happened in Black River happened because for decades, development decisions were made without regard to hazard mapping, flood risk, or climate projections. That must now change. Critical national infrastructure must progressively be relocated away from high-risk coastal zones. Hospitals, schools, utilities, highways, and logistic facilities must be positioned with full regard to storm surge, flooding, and sea level rise. Where we build is as important as what we build. The second principle is building redundancy in distributed systems across critical infrastructure. Black River's civic core was concentrated in one exposed corridor. And when Melissa struck, a single surge compromised everything simultaneously. That is not resilience, that is fragility. Our transportation corridor, power systems, water supply, telecommunications, network, and logistics systems must be engineered with backup capacity and distributed architecture so that when one part of the system is struck, the rest keeps functioning. Resilience is incompatible with single points of failure. The third principle is the integration of regional development and resilient economic clusters. The Black River Plan does not end at the town's boundary. It connects to housing developments, agricultural corridors, tourism infrastructure, and the regional road network across the South Coast. That is intentional. Resilience cannot be built by project. It has to be built by a network. Connectivity, roads, hospitals, schools, housing, energy systems, and government services must be planned together to create a self-sustaining regional ecosystem. The fourth principle is economic diversification and production resilience. A resilient nation is not only physically strong, it is economically adaptable. Black River's rebuilt waterfront will anchor not just tourism, but wellness, marine recreation, heritage experience, and culinary offerings rooted in St. Elizabeth's agricultural identity. That diversification away from dependence on a single sector, any single market, any single source of economic activity is the model for Jamaica as a whole. We must broaden our productive base. Madam Speaker, the redevelopment of Black River will embody all 4 principles. It will be proof of concept that Jamaica has learned lessons and that we are determined to apply them not just to the historic town of the South Coast, that is the Black River, but to every parish, every corridor, and every community of this island that faces the same challenge as we seek to build forward stronger. Now, Madam Speaker, I know the people of Black River are anxious. Your MP, I could only describe it as anxiety. He is also anxious. Particularly persons who own property in proximity to the coast that sustained damage. There's a certain level of uncertainty. They're not sure whether or not they should rebuild, restart. Many of them have reached out to say, Prime Minister, I don't want to restart. In fact, there are several who have said, I was even contemplating coming out of business. Melissa's hastened the decision, but they want some indication so that they can figure out how to plan. And we hear on our side the magnitude and scale of what we are planning to do can't be rushed. We can't make wrong decisions. So we have to think these things out carefully, put in place the systems and the structure. So today I would have laid out for you the NARA, which will manage it, the legal framework under which it is going to be managed. So we are well there. So I would say to the people of Black River, we have identified suitable lands to support a structured program of relocation and reconstruction for housing and business. For businesses, the town of Black River, for businesses in the town of Black River, the UDC has been asked to begin dialogue with property owners regarding acquisition of property and relocation where necessary. Madam Speaker, I don't want to say too much here because I know how, what leaves here and lands there might be 2 different things. So I prefer that the entity, I have tasked them to go and start the dialogue, that they go and speak to the people directly. After agreement is reached, then you can speak publicly.